What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
Everyone shared the same wish. Please, let there be no more disasters. They all silently prayed for the safe return of their comrades. Yet, even this small, hopeful wish was soon crushed.
Urgent report from Adalman-sama. The Titan army has made contact at the Long Wall in the desert.
Benimaru's worst fears had materialized. Without hesitation or mercy, the great battle had erupted.
Volume 20, Chapter 3, Quake of the Titans.
Bordering the barren lands and the western nations stood an imposing structure known as the Long Wall. Legends claimed it was crafted by the god Ruminas to shield civilization from the deadly sands of the Desert of Death. This revered wall was safeguarded by a unique enchantment called the Magicule Repellent Barrier, designed to ward off monsters. The barrier served as a well-known protector of humanity along the frontier, activated to shield the Long Wall and fend off any monsters venturing from the Desert of Death. Its function was straightforward. It prevented the concentration of magicules, which in turn deterred the formation of massive creatures. Additionally, it repelled magicules, ensuring stronger monsters were kept at bay. Though not a flawless defense, occasional breaches allowed monsters to slip through. These incidents weren't significant. Local desert dwellers who hunted monsters for a living ensured that these small invasions never became a serious threat. The Long Wall remained a front line in the struggle against monsters and was patrolled regularly by the Holy Knight Order. These patrols identified and mended weaknesses in the barrier, safeguarding frontier life by confronting invading monsters as needed. Such practices reinforced the people's faith in Ruminas and strengthened the myth of the Long Wall's invincibility. But today, after 2,000 years, the Long Wall's true nature would be laid bare. At the wall's summit stood a skeleton clad in holy robes, Adalman. Moments earlier, he had sensed a disturbance in space, followed by a vast teleportation that revealed a legion of giants.
Oh, just as my god foretold, they've teleported.
Adalman muttered with pleased surprise. Rather than feeling anxious, he seemed thrilled that Rimaru's prediction had proven accurate. Even so, he remained focused on his duty. He completed the telepathy net connection to his homeland, then readied himself for the battle ahead. Meanwhile, the giants who had just arrived were confident their ambush had worked. With Mai's power, they had teleported, sparing themselves days of travel and expecting the enemy to be caught off guard. Dagruel's troops had purposely paraded their advance, aiming to deceive Ruminas and lead her to think they would not be fully prepared for this assault. But things were not as the giants had anticipated. The defenders had already prepared, crafting a strong defense ready to respond without needing rest. Despite the distance, the impressive sight of the chained Titan army could be seen clearly, a display of raw might. The army was fewer in number but formidable in power. Each giant was a formidable presence, all muscle and might. As various types of giants, massive ogres, one-eyed cyclops, and many armed hecatoncheires, marched forward, Adalman couldn't help but chuckle at Dagruel's forces.
Well, that's quite the display. My poor little skeletons might be in for some real work here.
A little work, you say?
Beside him stood a stunning woman with purple hair, Xian, dressed sharply in a suit.
Honestly, it's going to be, well, tough, but we'll manage somehow.
Unwilling to admit defeat before the fight began, Adalman, always resolute, held his confidence in his immortal army, knowing they could be revived.
Oh, so what's the grand strategy here?
Xian, intrigued, probed him on the source of his confidence.
Well, calling it a strategy might be generous. But with Alberto's leadership, we're in good hands. Besides, take a look for yourself. Feast your eyes on my forces.
Adalman gestured toward his assembled soldiers, the Immortal Legion, neatly arrayed and battle-ready.
What do you think? Even the bone soldiers now bear the equipment my god gifted us.
With that, Xian understood his motives. More than anything, Adalman was eager to showcase his power. Adalman led an impressive force of undead creatures, ones he had summoned himself. Inside the Long Wall, these immortal monsters were arranged in perfect ranks, a sight to behold. His main strength came from a contingent of 2,000 Death Knights. These Death Knights, commanded by their Death Lord, rode spectral horses and wore full suits of chainmail made from magisteel, known as magimail. The armor had a faint, mysterious glow and was crafted with top-quality materials from the dwarf factories in Tempest. Though Garm himself hadn't made it, his skilled disciples had crafted it with high-purity magisteel, ensuring both performance and compatibility with the knight's mana. With both their defense and offense greatly enhanced, these Death Knights were now far more powerful than their original A- ranking. Now, they were almost at A rank, fully embodying the strength expected of a main battle force. And that wasn't all. Alongside this main force, there were numerous other monsters, though they lacked the raw power of the Death Knights. Scattered along the long wall were lower-ranking monsters totaling 50,000 in number. Although their numbers were impressive, these monsters were generally weak, averaging at about a D rank, so they wouldn't make a huge impact on their own. However, what set them apart was their equipment. Adalman took pride in the fact that the latest weaponry from Tempest's monster factories had been put to good use. Each rank had its own distinct uniform colors, but their armor was standardized for protection and enhanced with resistances against fire, cold, and other elements. The Bone Archers, in particular, stood out with portable recoilless missile launchers strapped to their backs. These launchers fired projectiles at 5 times the speed of sound, each missile packed not only with explosives but also with compressed magicules. Each Bone Archer had 2 Bone Soldiers as support, creating mobile artillery units totaling 10,000. However, ammunition was somewhat limited. Each soldier carried a total of 3 rounds, 1 loaded and 2 spares, amounting to 50,000 missiles overall. Meanwhile, each zombie soldier was armed with an automatic rifle. Although powered by gunpowder instead of magic, these rifles packed a serious punch. While they weren't effective against enemies with physical resistance, they could still cause significant damage to lower-ranked giants. Although a manufacturing method for these firearms was established, Rimuru had prohibited mass production. However, for this mission, a special exception was made. These guns had unique serial numbers and tracking magic imprinted on them. Rimuru himself was largely unaware of this detail, having hurriedly signed off on it, with only Seal truly aware of the situation. Adalman, luckily, had no knowledge of this either, and there was more than just these weapons in his arsenal. The Bone Knights, for instance, were all armed with Imperial magic sabers and had spell guns at their waists. Salvaged from Imperial forces, these weapons greatly increased their offensive power while sacrificing defense. Although extreme, Adalman saw this as an advantage, enabling his undead soldiers to execute suicide attacks without fear, since they did not fear death. This was the essence of the Immortal Legion's strategy. This army of undead warriors, free from the need for food or sleep, was set as the first line of defense. Under Adalman's command, each of these soldiers had their abilities boosted. Additionally, thanks to the Holy Demonic Reversal attribute from the ultimate gift, Necronomicon, their nature had changed, allowing them to bypass the magicule repelling barrier along the long wall and operate during the daytime without any hindrance. Outside the labyrinth, defeated undead could not revive. However, because holy magic had no effect on them, they were immune to purification methods like purification of the dead, turn undead. Only those who had faced these undead could comprehend how terrifying they had become with their holy attributes. Since they were immune to regular attacks, the only way to eliminate them was through sheer destruction. This Immortal Legion now took their positions along the long wall, fully prepared to confront the approaching enemy. The structure of the long wall offered a clear view from the top, which stood over 5 meters high, allowing snipers to easily target foes below. Originally, Ruminez had designed the wall as a defensive measure against Dagruel's ambitions. The use of such weapons was never anticipated, as it was intended for the vampires to rely on magic for defense. But with these new advantages, the finer details hardly mattered. Xian's gaze sharpened as she observed Adalman's formidable troops. Initially, she had thought amassing a horde of skeletons would be pointless. However, upon seeing their impressive gear, she quickly reconsidered. More pressing in her mind was,
Hey, Adalman, can you tell me, how exactly did you manage to get all that gear?
it was widely understood among the command corps and higher-ups that equipment for subordinates came through their leaders. Typically, new equipment required submitting a request and getting approval, followed by a waitlist process that even top officials couldn't bypass. In Tempest's workshops, priority went to the Second Corps under Geld, as their equipment was crucial for national defense, a policy that went uncontested. Though the Corps had recently been outfitted, maintaining the extensive gear supply was challenging. Magisteel items could self-repair, but still, most reservations were reserved for the Second Corps. Next in line for equipment were adventurers and commercial clients. This venture was a government-backed effort to bring in foreign currency, and Xian couldn't interfere with that priority. As a result, waiting for freely distributed equipment took far too long. Meanwhile, the Yomigari, a group of rowdy recruits who trained tirelessly, were less productive by comparison. Though some viewed their repeated requests for repairs as fitting for their soldierly duties, their constant uniform tears and gear damage meant they frequently occupied the repair shop, all at no cost. This led to a flood of complaints reaching Xian. With all this going on, applying for new equipment for the Yomigari was out of the question, leaving their official gear outdated. Even those fortunate enough to receive initial supplies were limited to executives and founding members, leaving the newer recruits to make do with practice-made gear crafted by apprentice artisans. These makeshift items were barely uniform in appearance, with bandanas and armbands dyed purple to maintain some semblance of unity. Shion, who had reluctantly asked Rimuru for upgraded equipment more than once, now found herself puzzled at how Adalman, still relatively new to the group, had outfitted his subordinates so lavishly. Adalmann's response came with a cheerful grin.
Oh, it's simple. I've been taking low-quality gear from adventurers, scrapping it, and using the proceeds to buy iron ore directly. Plus, I have a few merchant connections to help me out.
Wait, do adventurers even reach the floors you guard?
Shion's skepticism was justified. Adalmann's assigned area was between floors 61 and 70, suggesting that there were additional arrangements in play.
Well, about that, I've been sending my troops up on missions. It's great training for them, so it's like hitting two birds with one stone.
Adalman had been dispatching his undead soldiers to higher floors, raking in a tidy profit from their efforts. With a "what matters is not getting caught" approach, he had implemented a rather unorthodox system that no one had questioned.
Ah yes, I was quite pleased to find so many well-equipped Imperial soldiers. But the real prize was defeating that iron golem.
Shion took in Adalmann's gleeful tone, realizing he wasn't just skirmishing with adventurers in the labyrinth, he was methodically gathering resources.
A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Jared Bressler, Havox, Speed Saber, Curtis Loban, Judah Herrera, Just a Guy, Miss L.W. Hernandez, Jason Martin, Zach Rosen, Jerry Sladek, Ray Perez, Jay, Donald Williams, Day of Light, John M, Godman Gaming, Markithian Tidwell, Adrian, Kumo, T. Bush, JV, Thomas, Christ, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Khalid, Christian Deshazer, Divine C. Harris, Montyboy98, Ruben, Yuki Iki, Gray, Isaac, Koala King 93, Quilly Buckner, Alver, Darius King, Normal Defate, Vicente Baharias, Joshua Andrade, L, Gary Miles, Dragon Spawn 666, J. Rule, Nate, Leiron Sangkap, Lucas Guet, Jason Martin, Christopher Mash, Charles Bailey, Sky T, Diego Ginoza, Andre Hamilton, Martin Ramos, Guy Ensley, Simon Rode, Emperor WSA, Miko Espinosa, Gobi Lin, Pratik Bandari, Faiz Mansour, Jackson Early, Smexy, Carl Stephen Bernadel, Gareth Hashimoto, Steven Madison, Vasto Lord, Marl Barsha, Ralph Ignacio, Efrain Hernandez, William Locke, Kamal Luke, Jahid Hassan Lipu, Spencer Candila, Ian Sikibiol, Thanacorn Lee Sawat, KACP9R, The Harv, Drayden Yamauchi, Alex Buthanu, Michael Brinkley, Nathan Alexander, Mario Kanoy, Karam Faraj. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.